Right now, Arsenal Football Club are standing at the edge of something that has never been done in the modern era of this club. Not since the days of Arsene Wenger has this football club been in a position to genuinely threaten to win everything in a single season. And yet here we are. On the 18th of March, 2026, Arsenal are the only English club still competing for the quadruple. Not Manchester City, not Chelsea, Arsenal. Let that sink in for a moment. While the so-called giants of English football have been falling one by one in the Champions League, Mikel Arteta's side have remained composed, clinical, and utterly relentless. Bayer Leverkusen, the reigning Bundesliga champions, came to the Emirates and left with nothing. Arsenal won the second leg 2-0, sealing the tie 3-1 on aggregate. And that performance did not just confirm their place in the Champions League quarterfinals. It sent a message to every team left in the competition. Pep Guardiola, the most decorated manager in recent English football history, said it himself ahead of the Carabao Cup final. His exact words were these: "To win against Arsenal, you have to be almost perfect." And what Mikel has done is incredible. You can see his fingerprints all over the team. This is coming from the man who has won everything in football. If even he is saying that, you have to pay attention. This is the reality we are dealing with right now. Arsenal are being spoken about as the best team in England and possibly the best team in Europe. And the evidence supporting that claim is growing by the day. Before we go deeper into everything that is happening around this club, I want you to understand what is at stake right now. Arsenal have 4 trophies in front of them: the Premier League, the Champions League, the FA Cup, and the Carabao Cup. Every single one of them is still within reach. The markets are reflecting this reality. The probability numbers being quoted right now are extraordinary. Arsenal are sitting at 90% to win the Premier League, 56% to win the Carabao Cup, 38% to win the FA Cup, and 29% to win the Champions League. Now, if you look at those numbers individually, they might seem modest, but collectively, what they represent is something historic. No English team has won all 4 trophies in a single season, ever. And Arsenal are the only club in England who still have a realistic shot at doing it. The question is no longer whether Arsenal can win the league. That conversation is done. The question now, the one that should be consuming every Arsenal supporter on the planet, is how many of those 4 trophies can this team actually lift before the season ends? If you want this level of analysis throughout the rest of Arsenal's season, make sure you are subscribed to Tom Arsenal Talks. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you never miss a single breakdown, because the next 2 months of Arsenal's season are going to be unlike anything this club has experienced in a generation. Now, let us go through everything step by step because there is a lot to unpack. Let us start with what is coming first. Sunday, Wembley, Arsenal versus Manchester City in the Carabao Cup final. This is the first piece of silverware up for grabs this season, and the importance of it cannot be understated. Declan Rice explained it perfectly. He said this: if you win that, the momentum after that takes you forward, is massive. He called it the start of something. The first trophy that is up for grabs. And he is right. Winning at Wembley against Manchester City would do something to this group of players that no training session or tactical meeting can replicate. It would confirm in their own minds that they are capable of winning the biggest occasions. And here is what makes this even more compelling. Arteta has a perfect record at Wembley. He has never lost there as a manager. Walking into the final with that kind of psychological edge against a Manchester City side that just suffered a humiliating 5-1 defeat to Real Madrid in the Champions League. This is as good a moment as Arsenal will get to take that trophy. Now, Guardiola has already spoken, and his words before this cup final are fascinating. He did not come out and say Manchester City would win. He came out and said Arsenal are the best team in England, and so far the best team in Europe. He then added, "We will challenge them and then we will play them in the Premier League." That is not the language of a manager who is confident. That is the language of a manager who is preparing his players for an extremely difficult test by managing expectations carefully. Guardiola also acknowledged the scale of what Arsenal have built. He said that to win against them, you have to be almost perfect. He is right, and that is what makes this final so intriguing. Manchester City were just knocked out of the Champions League. They arrive at Wembley wounded and under pressure. Arsenal arrive full of momentum, full of confidence, and with everything still to play for. Now let us look at what the pundits are saying about this final. Thierry Henry, the greatest Arsenal player of the modern era, gave his verdict on Sky Sports. He said at this moment, it will take a very strong team to beat Arsenal. He expressed confidence that Arsenal can beat Manchester City in the cup final on Sunday. He described the way they play, the manager's methods, and the belief in the players as playing with intensity, seriousness, and energy. He finished by asking, who else in Europe is playing with that level of conviction right now? His answer was very few. Paul Merson went even further. He said he cannot see any team having a clear plan to stop Arsenal right now. He acknowledged that the conversation has shifted. It is no longer just about whether they can win the league. It is about whether they can win all 4 trophies. He called Arsenal, with their current form and belief, capable of anything. Martin Keown, another Arsenal legend, described what he believes Arteta will be communicating to his players. Stay humble, stay focused, you can achieve great things. He said the players could be a part of something special, and that playing big games every 2 or 3 days is simply how they live now. That level of calm focus from within the camp is exactly what separates contenders from winners. And former Arsenal striker Alexandre Lacazette, who watched Arsenal against Everton and then against Bayer Leverkusen, was visibly impressed. He praised the defence, the intensity, the aggression in attack, and the strength in midfield. He said they look solid all over the pitch. His conclusion was that if they keep playing like this, they have a real chance of winning everything possible this season. That is an extraordinary collection of voices, all pointing in the same direction. This Arsenal team is doing something special. Now let us move to the Champions League quarterfinal draw, because this is where the story gets truly fascinating. Arsenal will face Sporting CP in the last 8 of the Champions League. And if you understand the backstory here, you understand just how perfectly the football world has written this script. Viktor Gyökeres left Sporting CP in the summer transfer window. He forced his way out of the club, which explains the tension that still exists in Lisbon around his departure. He scored 97 goals in 102 games for Sporting across the 2023 to 2025 period. He then signed for Arsenal for £64 million. And now, for the first time since leaving, he goes back. The Portuguese media have already reacted. A publication called Mais Futebol is running a fan poll asking how Gyökeres will be received at the Estadio José Alvalade. At the time of writing, 51% of voters said he deserves applause. 22% voted in favour of whistling him. The remaining 28% said they did not care. So the reception is going to be mixed, and the atmosphere inside that ground is going to be electric. A Bola, one of the most respected football publications in Portugal, wrote that Gyökeres returns to Alvalade with more restricted movements and less confidence. They also acknowledge that despite this, he remains one of the main weapons Arsenal possess. They know exactly what he is capable of. They saw it every week for 2 seasons. But here is what I find most telling. Ivan Fresneda, a former teammate of Gyökeres at Sporting, spoke after his side reached the quarterfinal. He said they will see Viktor Gyökeres again and that he is very happy to have Viktor back at the stadium. That is a warm reaction from inside the Sporting camp. But make no mistake, when the referee blows that whistle, sentiment disappears. Now, how did Sporting even reach the quarterfinal? Their route was anything but smooth. They lost the round of 16 first leg to Bodo Glimt by 3-0. And then, in what can only be described as a remarkable turnaround, they won the second leg 5-0 to progress. That tells you everything about their mentality and their capacity to perform under pressure. Arsenal, by contrast, had already faced Sporting last season in the Champions League and won 5-1 in Lisbon. The memory of that night will be in the minds of every Sporting player when Arsenal arrive in April. But football is not played on memories. It is played on the pitch. And Sporting will be desperate to prove they have grown since that humiliation. What makes this particularly interesting is the statistic that came from Arsenal's performance against Leverkusen. Arsenal became the first team to score 2 goals from outside the penalty area in a single Champions League knockout game. The only other team to have done that in a knockout game was Arsenal themselves against Real Madrid last season. That tells you about the variety and unpredictability of Arsenal's attacking play. They are not just dangerous from set pieces or through balls. They can hurt you from anywhere on the pitch. Let us talk about what Mikel Arteta has built, because the numbers are now impossible to argue with. Before Arteta took charge of Arsenal, the club had not reached a single Champions League quarterfinal in 14 years. 14 years, that is an entire generation of Arsenal supporters who had never seen their team in the last 8 of Europe's biggest competition. In 3 seasons under Arteta, Arsenal have reached the Champions League quarterfinal 3 times in a row. Every single year he has been in the competition, he has taken Arsenal to the last 8. That is not luck. That is structure. That is planning. That is belief. And the home record this season confirms it. Across all competitions, Arsenal have played 24 matches at the Emirates Stadium. They have won 20 of those. They have drawn 3. They have lost just 1. 20 wins from 24 home games. That is a fortress. That is a team that makes the Emirates Stadium a place that opponents genuinely dread visiting. Guardiola himself acknowledged it. His fingerprints are all over this team. That was his description of what Arteta has created. And you only need to watch Arsenal press to understand what he means. Let us get into the tactical detail for a moment, because what Arteta has built is not just about spirit and belief. It is about a very specific and well-drilled system. On goal kicks, Arsenal's press operates in a clearly defined structure. Eberechi Eze and Viktor Gyökeres are responsible for pressing the centre-backs. Bukayo Saka takes a dividing role. Martin Zubimendi also divides. And Ben White maintains what is described as a +1 position, keeping an additional man available to support the press when needed. The point about Leverkusen's response is instructive. The obvious counter to this press is to drop the left back into a deeper position, creating a bigger distance for Saka to cover in his dividing role. Leverkusen identified that and tried to exploit it. But the fact that Arsenal still dominated the tie tells you how well drilled and how adaptable this pressing system is. And that brings us to Martin Zubimendi. He has taken criticism recently, and some of that criticism has been fair, but there is important context that needs to be understood. Against Leverkusen, he played 73 minutes rather than the full 90. And within those 73 minutes, he looked sharper, more focused, and his passing had the purposeful quality that reminded people why Arsenal spent so much to bring him to the club. Managing his minutes may be the key to getting the best version of him during this crucial period of the season. Now let us talk about Eberechi Eze, because this is one of the most nuanced conversations happening around Arsenal right now. The reality of his situation is this. He moved from Crystal Palace, where he had enormous creative freedom and was the central figure in everything the team did, to Arsenal, where the system is more structured and the responsibility is shared across a squad of elite players. That transition is never simple for an attacking player who thrives on freedom. And yet, look at what he has delivered in his debut season. He has made 23 starts across the Premier League and the Champions League. He contributed an assist against Manchester City. He scored 5 goals against Tottenham Hotspur. And he scored a crucial long-range goal against Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League round of 16. Those are not the numbers of a player who has failed to adapt. Those are the numbers of a player who, despite playing in an unfamiliar role within a new system, has shown up in the biggest moments. The question of whether he has been one of Arsenal's best players this season is a separate debate. But the question of whether his debut season represents genuine value and contribution, that answer is clearly yes. As one analyst put it, if you had told him at the start of the season that this is what he would achieve, having signed in the final week of the transfer window, he would 100% have taken that. One aspect of Arsenal's success that does not always get the attention it deserves is the goalkeeping position. David Raya has been outstanding this season, and the comparison being made right now is a significant one. Jamie Carragher, one of the most respected football analysts in the country, stated that Raya has had a bigger impact this season than Gianluigi Donnarumma. Now, before this Champions League round of 16, many people favoured Donnarumma. He has the experience. He has been at the highest level before. He was expected to be the better goalkeeper across these two legs. But what actually happened? Donnarumma made an error from a corner kick in a Champions League knockout tie. And Carragher's assessment was direct. There is no doubt that Donnarumma blinked first. Corners can be difficult for goalkeepers, but it was not really the case in that situation. Raya, by contrast, kept a clean sheet and made a massive save when the moment demanded it. That is the difference between a good goalkeeper and a decisive one. Raya has become exactly what Arsenal need him to be, at exactly the right moment. Now, there is one story in all of this that Arsenal supporters should be paying close attention to. And it is not about a player, it is about a man working behind the scenes who has been central to the construction of everything Arteta has built. Monaco, Bayern Munich and Manchester City are all reportedly interested in luring Andrea Berta away from Arsenal. These clubs are said to be preparing attractive packages, including higher salaries, major bonuses and strong long-term terms in an attempt to tempt him away. Now, it is important to be clear. This is reported interest. This is a rumor at this stage. No transfer has been confirmed. No negotiation has been officially announced. But the fact that clubs of that stature are reportedly circling around Arsenal's sporting director tells you how highly regarded he is across European football. Losing a sporting director of his caliber at a moment when Arsenal are this close to achieving something historic would be a significant blow to the long-term project. This is a story that deserves close monitoring in the weeks and months ahead. Let us also acknowledge the financial dimension of Arsenal's Champions League run because it matters for the sustainability of this project. By reaching the Champions League quarterfinals, Arsenal have earned an additional €12.5 million. Their total UEFA prize money for this season has now risen to almost 109 million euros. Last season, their total Champions League earnings reached 117 million euros. That kind of financial power gives Arsenal a platform to continue competing at the highest level. Every round they progress, every game they win, adds to the resources available to Arteta and to whoever holds the sporting director position in the transfer windows ahead. It is not just about trophies. It is about building a club that can sustain this level of competition year after year. The Kasper Hjulmand view is worth noting as well. The Denmark national team manager identified Arsenal and Bayern Munich as the leading contenders to win the UEFA Champions League this season. Following Arsenal's 2-0 victory over Bayer Leverkusen, he praised their balance, defensive strength and attacking output as the key factors behind their success. He did acknowledge that the competition remains open and that teams like Real Madrid and PSG are also serious contenders. But the fact that an international manager at that level is naming Arsenal alongside Bayern Munich as the favourites says something important. Troy Deeney offered a more cautious view. He praised Arsenal's winning mentality and their ability to keep grinding results and answering every question. But he stopped short backing them to win the Champions League. His doubts centered on the two-legged format. He does not believe Arsenal can beat PSG or Bayern Munich across two legs. He acknowledged that it took a massive save from David Raya to keep a clean sheet against Leverkusen, and that Bayer Leverkusen actually played the better football across the tie. His overall assessment was that Arsenal have a horrible, steely nastiness to get over the line under Arteta, but that the standard required to win the Champions League outright may be a step further still. That is an honest and fair assessment. Deeney is not dismissing Arsenal. He is raising the question of whether the performances always match the results. And that is a legitimate analytical question. So where does all of this leave us? Arsenal are heading into a period of their season that will define this era of the club. The Carabao Cup final against Manchester City at Wembley is the immediate priority. Guardiola has called them the best team in England and Europe. Henry is confident they will win on Sunday. Merson says no team has a clear plan to stop them. Rice understands what winning that first trophy could do for the momentum of the entire season. After that, Sporting CP and Viktor Gyökeres returned to Lisbon. A poetic story within a historic campaign. And running alongside all of it, the Premier League title, which sits at 90% probability of being lifted by Arsenal before the season is done. The numbers, the records, the praise from peers and opponents alike. The tactical clarity, the squad depth, the goalkeeping performances, the prize money, the home fortress, the quarterfinal appearances in 3 consecutive seasons. Everything is pointing in the same direction. Arsenal, under Mikel Arteta, are in the form of their lives at the best possible time. They are the last English club standing in Europe. They are the only English club chasing all 4 trophies, and they are doing it with a style, a structure, and a collective belief that has not been seen at this club in more than 2 decades. This is not just a good Arsenal season. This could be the Arsenal season. The one that gets talked about forever. And as Martin Keown put it, what you do now will be talked about forevermore. The stage is set, the moment is here, and Arsenal look ready for all of it. Thank you for watching Tom Arsenal Talks. If you have not already subscribed, do it now. Hit the like button if you found this analysis useful. Leave a comment below telling me whether you think Arsenal will win the quadruple. I want to hear your views, and I will see you in the next one.